Today I'm going to take a look at the third house. Third house is your schedule, your neighborhood, your daily life, people you see on your rounds, messages you send, technology you use. Let's break it down and take a look at every planet through the third house. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing mainly in relationship, predictive, and natal astrology. If you'd like to work with me and book a reading, there's a link down below. And if you're new to my channel, please leave me a token of your love and appreciation in the shape of a comment, a like, and please subscribe. It helps the channel grow and stay on your radar. So if you have any planets in the third house, I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments down there. I have done a general video breaking down the houses and talking about how they're created and what they mean. So check that out for sure before you watch this video. And just know that there's no house in your chart is ever empty. There is always a planet that rules over that house. And you know, like let's say your third house is Cancer, but you have no planets in Cancer. You would look at the moon and your daily life, your relationship with your siblings, which is represented by the third house, will have a little bit of that lunar energy. So if you don't have any planets, but you know what planet rules the sign on the cusp of the third house, you can also listen for that planet. There is definitely a little bit of an overlap. So third house is the house that answers the question of what and who do you encounter on your daily basis. What do you talk about on a daily basis? Who do you talk to? How do you spend your day? It includes writing, it includes communication, it includes technology because we communicate very much through technology. You know, back in the day, people would send a letter and they used birds or that would be part of the third house too, kind of like what are the tools that you use? And together with that, there's also like skills. It's very familiar, and that's why the moon is actually very happy in the third house. Third house is considered the joy of the moon. So if you have the moon there, it's a lucky placement. It means your moon is very comfortable because the moon seeks familiarity, and third house is very familiar. It's, you know, literally like your neighbors, your phone, your siblings, your daily routine, the barista at the local shop. It's a very social house, the house of like quick action, a lot of encounters. There's very much like a Cheers vibe to the third house, you know, the local bar where everybody knows your name. And the moon is happy there. The moon is the planet of comfort, security. So it likes the lighter quality of the third house, the quality of like chit-chatting and meeting people and befriending people. You know, sometimes one might wonder like, why isn't the moon in its joy in the fourth house? But fourth house connected to our childhood, it's not always as stable. You know, there's traumas in childhood, and our caregivers, our parents are not always the most stable people in our life. So rather than putting the moon in the fourth house as the place of its joy, the moon is in its joy in the third house. Third house is also called the house of the goddess, because there is definitely a spiritual, mindful, meditative element to your daily life, especially if you're paying attention. There's a lot of rituals, right? Like third house is very much, what do you do? Like I have Saturn in the third house, and I'm going to talk about it in a second, but like I'm very structured in my rituals. Like I need to have familiar routines every day. And yeah, so there's definitely an element of like applied ritual. Ninth house deals with larger knowledge and trips people take to shrines and to major spiritual landmarks. But in the third house, you're like applying things. You're, you know, it's the altar you have in your home. It's the piece of cloth that you brought from a trip. There's like very much tangible quality to the third house too. It is also a cadent house. You know, we have, if you watch that video with a general description, we have angular houses, 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th. We have succedent houses and we have cadent houses. And cadent houses are the least prominent. They have planets in them. Well, one might argue succedent. Some of the succedent houses have that quality too. But in the cadent house, the planets are busy problem solving. It's like, you know, like it includes the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, and the 12th. And there's a lot of kind of things that you have to deal with, a lot of problems you have to solve. And they're also like cadent because they have just recently been angular, but they have fallen off that angularity. And so now they're last in order to become angular. And so there's definitely less strength to those houses. Planets in these houses often deal with problem solving. So as we go through 10 planets, 12 signs, as we go through 10 planets and break it down, I'm also going to include Chiron. Just think about that. Like, think about how you use this planet to problem solve and how you can maximize the qualities of this planet to suit you best. So let's take a tour, right? Let's place every planet in the third house and see what it might mean for you. And please, if you resonate with this, if it, you know, clicks in your head, or if you feel like you have something to add, let me know in the comments below. So if you have the sun in the third house, the sun is your identity. It's your light. It's your core being, right? So having the sun in the house of schedule and daily life creates a really busy schedule. I actually know someone who's a Leo sun with a Gemini rising. And for her, she's just constantly busy. There's just always things to do. Her weekends are packed with stuff. So if you have your sun in the third house, you're kind of this like friendly mailman type, walking around, talking to people, knowing everybody. You have a more friendly personality, an active mind, because the third house deals with communication. You're likely very communicative, very chatty, and have a lot of ideas. There might be business ideas, there might be professional ideas. Having a sibling that is very solar is likely here, because third house is siblings, neighbors, and sibling-like relationships. So a sibling who's like a Leo, or a sibling who is a leader, bright, noticeable, impressive, someone who maybe like took a lot of attention and maybe in part you felt like you needed to compete with them. But of course, this could show up through your sibling, or this could actually give you strong leadership abilities and great power to organize people and organize ideas, right? If you have your moon in the third house, moon is in its joy in the third house. So this is a lovely placement. It means that you're likely, because moon is comfort, moon is intimacy. So you may form really comfortable relationships with people in your daily life, like kind of intimate relationships where you know everything about them. They feel comfortable sharing things with you. You know, like knowing the names of your local like barista and the person who does your laundry and people at Trader Joe's, being in touch with them. And this is actually really great for working in customer service or being a writer too, or a consultant, translator, working at the information booth, being a barista, because you have that naturally comforting personality that people flock towards and feel comfortable with. You may have a lot of kind of knowledge of things that are comfortable and places that are comfortable in your neighborhood, because the moon seeks the comfortable and pleasing routines and environments. And because the moon deals with memory and imagination, there is likely to be a very strong imagination and good memory. And likely, unless the moon is otherwise involved and there are some challenging aspects, you are likely to have good relationships with your siblings. For those with Mercury in the third house deals with communication. Mercury deals with communication, so it's a double dose of communication. You're likely to be quite social and quite extroverted, at least, or at least able to turn it on when you need to. You may talk faster, you may have a really extra busy schedule. Watch out for getting flustered and spreading yourself too thin, because that can sometimes be a sign of Mercury being in the third house. Like you have a lot of things to do and not a lot of time to do it, and then you get frazzled and frustrated. So could be useful for you guys to journal and organize the activities and have clear schedule, because third house represents communication and Mercury's communication. Third house is communication and siblings. There might be a lot more talking and engaging and interacting with siblings. Just maybe you have like a group chat and you talk to them all the time. And you're likely someone who loves to learn. You may enjoy teaching, you may enjoy watching documentaries, reading books, and sharing your knowledge with other people. For those with Venus in the third house, Venus is very positive. It's good for relationship with siblings. There's likely very happy, harmonious relationship with siblings. Venus creates joy in your everyday life. You may naturally know all the happy spots, the best places in your neighborhood. You may have really good relationship with your neighbors. And like just naturally, you go outside and you encounter people who like give you things, or you may have, there's a possibility of just like easier flow and a lot of presence in the neighborhood. You may also have like a good sense of design or good understanding of how to put things together and how to make things work together. And because Venus deals with relationships, you may encounter your partner out and about in your neighborhood, or they may live in the same building as you are. As well as third house is like writing and letters. So maybe you, that's interesting. Maybe like through social media, or through travel, because third house also deals with like short trips. So you are on your local bus and you end up running into someone who ends up being your partner. For those with Mars in the third house, there might be more energy and more courage and more, Mars is always a place where we're more willing to fight, so maybe more passion to your daily life. Watch out for driving too fast. That often comes with Mars in the third house. You likely see your daily life as like a series of missions to accomplish and series of tasks to handle, like, putting check marks on your list. So it makes you active, it makes you determined, but you don't want to kind of like rush and get into careless accidents. You want to be careful with that. Your mind is likely faster, and you may be kind of a fast, quick thinker, kind of witty and very direct in your speech, bordering on like being like harsh in your speech. It depends on the sign of your Mars and whether there are other planets present in your third house, but definitely direct, definitely brave. There might be competition with siblings, or maybe more combative relationship with siblings, something that goes through ups and downs. And I think you can make money through competitive enterprises, and having your own business could also be quite likely if you have your Mars in the third house. Good energy for that, for sure. For those with Jupiter in the third house, this energy is quite similar to Venus. And let me know if you resonate with that. Jupiter in the third house brings good luck with living in nice neighborhoods. It brings good luck with siblings, connections with siblings, maybe growth and opportunities coming to you through siblings and neighbors. And you are likely very joyful, very cheerful in your communication style, happy to encourage other people, happy to share your wisdom. Travel might bring you a lot of blessings, and there might just naturally be more opportunities to take short trips, to hang out with grandma or to see a friend. And you may have a Jupiterian type sibling too. This may show up through quite literally a Pisces or a Sag sibling, but maybe someone who is a teacher and someone who, I don't know, or a priest, someone who shares their insights or helps people sometimes. Yeah, and like relationship with siblings is definitely going to be blessed unless there's some other influences on your third house. If you have Saturn in the third house, this is my placement together with Uranus, so I'm going to speak from the experience. So Saturn in the third house, because third house is your daily life, Saturn can create a sense of like limiting this a little bit, where you're more conservative when it comes to exploring your neighborhood. There might be a sense of like being blocked or kind of like taking a step back, not necessarily diving in and exploring things right away. So you may kind of be like very hesitant or reserved when it comes to meeting neighbors. Maybe you don't have super close relationships with your neighbors. And when it comes to like going to new places, you may be very good at structuring your schedule and organizing, but it's not necessarily like, let's try a bunch of new things, right? Personally, whenever I leave my home, I want it to be the time when I get everything done. I'm not a fan of like going outside like a million times. I have a neighbor who's a Pisces rising, so for him, Taurus will be his third house, and he's a lot more excited about just like going outside. And I'm like, I have to pack everything so I don't have to leave the house a million times, like groceries, a walk, exercise, whatever, everything is packed in. You may be a little bit sluggish, kind of like, it might take you a while to get things going, because Saturn is the last visible planet that has that elderly energy. So maybe you embody some of that, kind of like slow to get started energy. And siblings, there might be colder relationship with siblings, especially when you're younger. And as you get older, things might improve. And sometimes Saturn in the third also limits a possibility of having younger siblings. Like there might only be older siblings, because Saturn is old age, right? So your sibling is represented by that Saturn. And you may be quite observant, but not necessarily the most expressive, communicative, unless of course there's other things like, yes, I have Saturn in my third house, but I also have Mercury in the first. So I have no problem with communicating. But there might be more restriction to what you say and how you say it, which I think applies to a lot of people. For those with Uranus in the third house, Uranus is destabilizing, as always, regardless of whether Uranus is placed in your first or your third or your ninth. It just creates weirdness. So when you have Uranus in your third house, there might be like surprises in the neighborhood, random things. Since this is another placement that I have, we had like someone got shot on the block, like randomly. And then I always get like very weird neighbors. Everything's fine, nobody got killed, but like there was an accident in the neighborhood, and like the neighbors, for me, there's always a weirdo. It's just like, so if you have Uranus in the third house, share your stories. Do you have randos in your neighborhood or in your building? Because Uranus can definitely bring some quirky characters. There is an independence to your mind, inventiveness. You likely have unique ideas. There might be quickness to your mind too, maybe to a point of like overwhelm. And similarly to Mercury here, you can benefit from meditation, taking it easy and taking things slow. Because third house deals with siblings. Randomly, once in a while, you can see that your mom may have dealt with miscarriages if you have Uranus in the third house. And you can also actually have a very Uranian sibling, someone who is just living off the grid or extremely wealthy, or something about them that's just like unusual. There might be friction with relatives and with family members because of some of your quirky ideas, or you just may feel like you're very different from your family members, like you stand apart and there's something about you that doesn't reflect the rest of your family. For those with Neptune in the third house, you may kind of take it easy and have a very lazy flow through your day. There might be a difficulty creating a very structured schedule. This could be lovely because this could be very creative, especially like if you are a creative individual, you're just kind of like following the inspiration. Or it might create problems because you're forgetting appointments and you're forgetting to text people back, and then they get mad at you, or it's your boss, and it kind of can spill into other spheres of your life. On the positive, this often gives you strong intuitive powers and psychic abilities and like knowledge of things and ability to read people really well, and creative talents for sure. Considering third house deals with like writing and communication, you might be able to tell beautiful stories. There might be a little bit of self-doubt and a sense of undervaluing your abilities, and a little bit of a confusion when it comes to dealing with relatives. Maybe you don't quite understand where you stand, or they have issues. Like Neptune in the third house can also bring a sibling with addictive tendencies or addictive problems. Another manifestation of Neptune in the third house is you're drawn to deep learning. You're drawn to spirituality, occult, philosophy, astrology, anything like that. And you can use your powerful intuition and your powerful imagination in those spheres. For those with Pluto in the third house, you may have a Plutonian sibling, someone who's a therapist, or someone who's just kind of dark and manipulative on the negative, right? Like negative, there can be power struggles with siblings and neighbors. And on the positive, they may be very intuitive, very charismatic, very magnetic in a lot of ways. It gives you a very deep, penetrative, probing mind where you are interested in getting to the bottom of things, able to do amazing research and pick up the clues from your environment. And considering third house deals with the neighborhood, when you have Pluto in the third house, you may have secret spots that only you know, or only a few select few know. And yeah, like, and you kind of can use that to your advantage. And if in your writing and your communication, there might be kind of like depth and power and intensity, strength to your voice. Finally, for those with Chiron in the third house, Chiron is always a wound, a challenge we have, a difficulty we're dealing with. Everyone has it somewhere in their chart. So with Chiron in the third, there might be a sense of being an outcast and not quite belonging in your neighborhood. There might be difficulties with siblings, like I've seen it in my practice, where the sibling just took on all of the attention and the parents didn't have time to give it to their other child or children. And so if you're born with this and you've dealt with this, you may struggle to kind of be seen and to, get the attention that you desired. And there also can be a speech impediment or very strong sensitivity to what people say or what people think of you, how they hear you. So either you may stutter in the past in your childhood, or you are just extremely sensitive. There may also be a sense of not being allowed to express your thoughts and not being able to speak up. And so you go through life trying to express yourself. The more you learn to not see the words of others as criticism or as the way to put you down, the more you will understand that your thoughts and ideas are highly unique. And it also is an indicator of like getting older and becoming a very thoughtful, very broad-minded, excellent communicator, or becoming a writer, right? You can use the pain, you can use the challenges that you dealt with in order to improve yourself and help change the world. Let me know if these resonated, and if you made it all the way until the end of the video. I really appreciate you guys, and please subscribe, leave me a comment. Talk to you soon. Bye.